What's up, investors? It's the Russian jet. Let's get something straight. Revolutions in Russia never start with slogans. They start with exhaustion. The kind that seeps into every kitchen, every bus stop, every telegram channel, where people pretend they are just venting. You've seen this before potentially, especially if you love history. 1917, the soldiers were starving before they turned their rifles around. 1989, the shelves were empty long before the crowds filled the streets. Now it is 2025 and it is happening again. The symptoms at least are exactly the same and they are everywhere. Factories working 6 days weeks for half the pay. Regions left without heating while Moscow erects new war monuments. Mothers of mobilized soldiers demanding to see their sons' graves and then just getting threatened for discrediting the Russian army. For 3 years at this point, more than 3 years, Putin managed to keep the door to a realization closed with oil money, fear and sheer denial. But the economy is bleeding faster than he can print rubles. The elites are devouring one another in panic, and the propaganda that once united the country under the special military operation slogan is now turning into white noise. So today, let's not talk about Russia versus the West. Let's not talk about collapsing Russian economy. Today, we're talking about Russia versus itself. It always starts where no one looks. In the workshops, in the depots, the mines, places like this. Nobody talks about them. In 2024, Putin bragged that the defense industry has never been stronger. He forgot to mention conveniently that the workers building those missiles have not been paid in 3 months. In Tula, hundreds of employees at a munitions plant walked out silently one morning. No signs, no chance, nothing. They just did not show up. The official reason? Technical maintenance. The real one? Hunger, and not a single ruble of income in quarter of a year. In Chelyabinsk then, metallurgists staged a sick leave strike, all calling in ill the same week after their overtime was cancelled. And in Yekaterinburg, machinists leaked a video showing broken equipment and talking about unpaid bonuses. It got 2 million views before being deleted, as expected, and that's when regional officials started calling everyone in for friendly talks. Some of these people talking friendly to their superiors got fired, some replaced, some, the most active ones, ended up in Ukraine. Not very friendly talk, if you ask me. The myth of the patriotic worker, the man welding shells for victory, is collapsing now, because he knows that these shells do not defend him, they just drain him. The average Russian industrial worker now earns the equivalent of $480 a month. Less than the family grocery bill in Moscow sometimes. Meanwhile, the state TV brags about record output and heroic productivity. But when people cannot heat their homes or afford potatoes, the cheapest ones, no amount of patriotic jingles helps. They are realizing something the Kremlin never wanted them to. Sacrifice, which is supposed to end in reward, ends up in bankruptcy and humiliation for them. Stories spread like wildfire, and no wonder the line of volunteers willing to sacrifice themselves further shrinks. And once workers stop believing that their suffering has meaning, the entire machinery of obedience starts to jam. That is precisely why strikes, even the smallest ones, are treated like sabotage. Because they are sabotage to the system's illusion of unity. Money is only one thing that can force people to radically change their minds about those who rule over them. But there is another thing, which is much, much stronger, and that is personal grief of a loss of a family member or friend. Millions of Russians went through this horrible experience, and without a doubt, it changed them. Let's talk about it in our next chapter. You can ban protests, but you cannot ban grief. And that is Putin's new nightmare. Across dozens of regions, the Council of Soldiers' Mothers, once a loyal state-controlled organization, has now gone rogue. They have stopped reading the official condolences and started demanding answers. In Kursk, for example, mothers surrounded a local recruitment office after reports that the volunteer battalion of their sons had been annihilated near Avdiivka. No goals achieved, no backlash, no investigation, no official information or an update, nothing. Just a confirmed unfortunate rumor. The police showed up even, but did not dare to arrest them, because it's one thing to drag off college students or kids. It's completely another to drag off dozens of crying mothers holding photos of their sons, who will resist, because they have literally nothing else to lose. On Vkontakte and Telegram channels, groups with names like Where is my son or We won't be silent are multiplying. They share lists of casualties, but the Ministry of Defense refuses to publish them. They compare stories of sealed coffins, unsigned contracts, fake medals. They know that they are being watched, yet they post anyway. And then there is the moment every autocrat fears: empathy turning into solidarity. A mother in Bryansk, for example, sends 5,000 rubles, like $60, to another mother in Buryatia to hire a lawyer. A wife in Perm smuggles documents proving her husband's unit was abandoned without command. These are not political acts, but they are political consequences. You can drown dissent in propaganda, but you cannot drown a woman's scream when she learns that her son died for nothing. That is why, for the first time since the invasion began, the Kremlin's media watchdog Roskomnadzor ordered state channels to avoid excessive focus on funerals. Well, too late. People took matters in their own hands. The mourning is everywhere, and mourning in Russia, as history shows, always precedes rebellion. That is exactly what begins to happen. Something what we talked about mere months after the war started, which basically as soon as enough families of Russia are going to be directly affected by the war, the silence will not be tolerated, it will be broken. There is no more fear when once again you lose everything. And I'm not just talking about the regular people. Russia's elite are human beings as well, after all, believe it or not. And so the usual Kremlin tactics stop working. Let's talk about it in our next chapter. Now let's climb the pyramid. For 2 decades, Putin's elite lived by one single rule: stay loyal and get rich, maybe, hopefully. But what happens when loyalty stops paying? When yachts are seized, sons die at the front lines, and the boss starts blaming you for the mess. We already seen the early signs of cannibalism. In June, for example, 2 governors, one from Khabarovsk, one from Udmurtia, were suddenly relieved of their duties for allegedly health reasons. Translation: they just refused to send more men to the front lines. One was later photographed at Sheremetyevo airport with black eye and just heading for treatment somewhere. In Moscow, ministers are snitching on one another to avoid prosecution. Security services are auditing state corporations under the pretext of anti-corruption. In reality, it's just a loyalty purge. You can feel the paranoia even in public speeches. Every official now inserts the phrase "by direct order of the president," which is basically the code for whatever I'm gonna say next, please just don't fire me. Even the Siloviki, Putin's iron core, are fracturing. Wagner's ghost still haunts them. Prigozhin's mutiny showed the system's weakness, and everyone remembers how close it came to collapse. That memory lingers. It will for many more years. The generals now run their own Telegram channels, each blaming the other for battlefield failures. Here's the irony. While the Kremlin brags about unbreakable unity, Putin's inner circle has become a minefield for suspicion. Nobody trusts anyone. Every reshuffle feels like a death sentence in disguise. The fear that once held them together now isolates them, and isolation breeds mistakes. When elites start fleeing abroad or stashing their families in Dubai, it's not treason, it's simple instinct, because they know something ordinary Russians are only starting to sense. The system might not die tomorrow, but it is dying. Moscow loves to talk about the unity of our vast country. It's easy, when you're sitting in a gold-plated office 5,000 kilometers away. But outside the capital, unity is a myth. Russia is a federation in name only, and those names are getting restless. In Dagestan, for example, protests over power outages morphed into open anti-Moscow chants. In Buryatia, local activists exposed fake volunteer lists that conscripted men without consent. In Sakha, miners blocked a road demanding unpaid wages. And in the Far East, where the average monthly salary barely crosses 35,000 rubles, the price of a dinner in a good restaurant in Moscow, for 2 people probably, resentment towards capital's luxury has obviously reached Soviet collapse levels. Every time a governor begs for funds to rebuild a bridge or pay teachers, Moscow simply replies, "War first." So locals patch roads themselves, crowdfund hospitals, and curse the government under their breath. The Kremlin interprets that as a regional patriotism. Well, it is just actually a regional despair. And to be honest, they should be even thankful if it just ends there. to be more, if they try to be more vocal, and well, suddenly you spending your own money to fix your kid's school ends up being discrediting the Russian army. Don't even ask me how this happens or what is the logic behind it all. Well, it doesn't even matter, to be honest. Because if there is a person of interest, the Kremlin will always find a way to lock it. That is how empires die. Not with revolution slogans, but with apathy so deep it swallows fear itself. But let's not romanticize this. Russia is not on the verge of a classic uprising, at least not yet. There are no barricades, no coordinated opposition, no single spark, for now. But the chemistry of collapse is there. Anger, poverty, grief, and a leadership too paranoid to fix anything. What makes this moment different is how personal it is becoming. It is not abstract politics anymore. It is lived tragedy. The war that was supposed to unite the nation has divided every kitchen. The propaganda that promised stability now sounds like mockery. The elites who once laughed at sanctions now hoard cash and fear of each other. Something real is brewing under the radar. You can feel it in the small rebellions. The missing shift at the factories, the unsigned condolence letter, the graffiti that says no war in chalk before it's washed away. Every regime that falls looks stable right before it doesn't. Putin's greatest weapon was silence. The silence of the people, the silence of the elites, the silence of the truth itself. But the thing about silence, once it cracks, once voices become louder, there is nothing that can silence them until they get what they want. On the other hand, guys, if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. If you wish to see an additional chapter at the end of this episode, please go ahead and check my Patreon. The link is down below. The memberships help our channel so much. Thanks so much for watching. See you tomorrow.
We won't succumb to their tricks, the facade they try to sell. Their twisted words and feeble claims on us all they cannot quell. We see through their lies, their feeble attempts to sway. We do not believe in ridiculous Russian propaganda.